Okay, so this is Pythagorean theorem. It's the same Pythagorean theorem that you learned in 8th grade, so it should be pretty familiar to you. And then towards the end of the notes, we'll look at the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. That's the kind of new part where you can use Pythagorean theorem to help figure out whether your triangles are going to be acute, obtuse, or right. Okay, so normally we just use Pythagorean theorem to see if a triangle is a right triangle, but you can also use it for other things. Okay, so if you look at the left side, they give you a picture. Okay, here are the legs of my right triangle. This is the hypotenuse. Okay, remember we practiced labeling or at least recognizing the sides because you got to know what piece you have in order to solve your problems correctly. Okay, so Pythagorean theorem, it is used to find the missing sides of a right triangle. Okay, so usually they'll give you a picture of a triangle and you'll know either like both of the legs or you'll know like one of the legs and the hypotenuse. Okay, A and B, those are your legs. They are the sides that make up the right angle. And then C is called your hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse will always be the longest side of that triangle. Okay, so just to jog your memory, for any right triangle, Pythagorean theorem is this: a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Okay, A and B, they are your legs. C is your hypotenuse. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to highlight your triangles every time like I do at the beginning, but I just kind of do it so you recognize what parts of the triangle that we have. Okay, so in the past when you've done Pythagorean theorem, you kind of like worked it out piece by piece and then put it in the calculator at the end. The way that I'm going to show you how to do it today, you're going to kind of do the calculator at the same time. Okay, so we'll practice more with that here in a second. Okay, so number 1, it says find the value of x. You're going to round each answer to the nearest tenth. Okay, so if you look at your picture, 8 and 13, those are your legs. X is your hypotenuse. Okay, so using Pythagorean theorem, this is how we would normally set it up. 8 squared plus 13 squared equals x squared. Okay, and our goal is to get x by itself.
Can we just add 18 with squares and 8 squared?
Okay, so we're going to put it in the calculator all at once. The way that we're going to do it is we have to undo square. Okay, so how do you undo square? Okay, square root. Okay, so if you think back to arithmetic, addition and subtraction, they're inverses. Multiplication and division, they're inverses. That means they undo each other. Okay, square and square root, they undo each other. Okay, so to get x by itself, we're going to take the square root of both sides. And what happens is x is going to equal whatever you get when you put that in the calculator. Okay, so in the calculator, you're going to do square root of 8 squared plus 13 squared. You're going to type it in all at once. Hold on. You got to slow down on me. Okay, so square root 8 squared plus 13 squared. They want you to round to the nearest tenth. So on your mode, double check it. It could already be set up, but just in case your calculator is ever not set up, you're going to go to mode. You're going to see where it says float. And for the nearest tenth, you're going to put it on 1. Okay, if they ask for like the nearest hundredth, you would put it on 2, nearest thousand, 3. Most of the time, you'll either have it on 1 or 2. For this assignment, they asked for the nearest tenth. Okay, so mode float 1, that will automatically round your numbers for you and you don't have to fight it. Okay, so to get to x squared, you just press second, and then x squared is about halfway down on the right side. Let me see if I can find it. Is that it? Yeah. Okay, so you would just do square root, and then whatever your numbers were, let's see. Okay, 8 squared plus 13 squared. And you get what? Okay, so ours is going to round to the nearest 10, so we should have 15.3. Okay, so x is 15.3. And that's all you got to do.
Will we also reverse, like, for example, if the hypotenuse is there, but you get one of the legs in the center, do the hypotenuse minus the leg?
We'll do that later. Okay, so, excuse me. I want you to take a look at number 2. Number 2 works exactly like that, okay? They give you the legs. Okay, so your legs are 22 and 27. Your hypotenuse is x. Okay, so all you have to write down is the part that we're going to put in the calculator. When you have both of your legs, you make sure you add in between. Okay, so this was 27 squared plus 22 squared.
Does it matter what order you put in?
For adding, no. If you do 22 squared plus 27 squared, it'll turn out just the same. The only time you have to be careful is when you subtract, because if you subtract a larger number and you get a negative under the radical, your calculator is going to freak out and it's going to say something like error. Okay, so if you have both of your legs, it doesn't matter the order. You can switch A and B around. Okay, so we're going to type it in, round it to the nearest tenth, and we get what? 30 what? Okay, 34.8. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so if you have the 2 legs, you're going to add them. You're going to square them, add them, and then put them under the square root in the calculator. Okay, if you have the hypotenuse, it works out a little bit different. Okay, so let's take a look at number 3. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of highlight my legs. We got 7 and x. Those are my legs. Here's our hypotenuse. Okay, so if we were to set this up like normal, we got 7 squared plus x squared equals 9 squared. Okay, our goal is to get x by itself. So I got to start by moving that 7 squared. I'd subtract it. Okay, they added, I'm going to subtract. And then if I want x by itself, we said to undo square, you need what? Square root. Okay, so we're going to take the square root of both sides. X is going to give us the square root of 9 squared minus 7 squared. Okay, so when you have the hypotenuse, what happens is this time you need to subtract. Okay, and it's important which order you put it in, because if you do 7 squared minus 9 squared, you're going to get an error. Okay, so always do the big number first. Your hypotenuse is always the largest number. Okay, so you're going to do 9 squared, square root of 9 squared minus 7 squared, and then press enter.
for fixed fee because I'm doing a test, then give me a test.
Tell me your name again.
So we're doing a test in the morning, so I'm going to the evening.
Tell me your name.
Oh, let's do
I don't need my
Vanessa.
bag, right?
Okay.
I don't need my bag. Do I need this on my computer or anything?
What does it say on there?
Please report to Mrs. 2L in the counseling office for the schedule meeting.
It said when
I need my computer.
Yeah. Take that with you. Probably doing schedule for next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so we type that in. What do we get? Okay, x is 5.7. 3:30. Montesa. 3:30.
3:30?
Yeah, that's what it says. No, that's what time you go. It's only 3 o'clock.
Oh.
So, did I have any more to test someone? Because it's like really small.
Just put it back on float
Yeah, how do you do that?
mode,
Oh, no.
and then put float and press enter. And then do that. Are we okay so far? Okay, I want you to do number 4. Number 4 works just like number 3. Okay, so look at what they give you. Think about what you're trying to find. Okay, so like if you're looking for the hypotenuse, that means your number that you're going to get is going to be bigger than the other numbers that you already have. Like on number 1 and number 2, we were looking for the hypotenuse. So the answer we got were bigger than either one of the sides. Okay, but on 3 and 4, we're missing a leg. We already have the hypotenuse. That means the answer that you get should be smaller than that pink segment. Okay, so that's how you can kind of think about it to make sure that the way you set it up was correct. Okay, so are we adding or subtracting? Subtracting. So 30.5 squared, it has to go first. Okay, then minus 19.1 squared. And we get what? Okay, 23.8. Okay, that's all you got to do. Okay, so 1 through 4, they're pretty straightforward. They just give you a triangle and you either have the hypotenuse in the leg or both of the legs, and then you have to find the missing side. Okay, so that's like the level that you did in 8th grade. And so now we're going to make it a little bit more high school. Okay, so they don't always just give you a triangle. Sometimes they give you another figure, and you have to use Pythagorean theorem to figure out a part of another shape. Okay, so look at number 5. Okay, on number 5, they give you this triangle. It's isosceles. The reason that we know it's isosceles is because it has these little tick marks. Okay, so if the piece on the left is 24, that means the piece on the right is how much? Okay, good, 24. Okay, and then they're asking for x. X is the height of that triangle. We know that all the way across is 22, but halfway across from here to here is how far? 11. Okay, so that's important because I want to just focus on this triangle right here. Okay, I just want to focus on half of this. Okay, so I'm going to use kind of like a little sticky note to block off some of it. Because all I want to know is what x is. And to figure out x, I can use Pythagorean theorem because if I chop off that left half, I have a right triangle. Okay, so I have a right triangle where I know the hypotenuse and I know one of the legs. Okay, so when we put this in the calculator, are we adding or subtracting? Okay, be careful. We have the hypotenuse. We're going to subtract, right? Okay, the hypotenuse is the longest side. So if we add, we're going to get a bigger number, right? When you add things, most of the time, they get bigger. Okay, so we want a smaller number. We're going to have to subtract those to get the height. Okay, so we're going to do square root Okay, so x equals square root of 24 squared minus 11 squared. Okay, if you have the hypotenuse, you have to subtract every single time. Okay, otherwise your number is going to come out too big. Okay, so you can type that in the calculator exactly like you see it. You press second x squared, and then it will bring up the little square root symbol. Then do 24 squared minus 11 squared. Press enter. Your calculator should round it for you. Said 20 what? 21.3. Okay, so x is 21.3, and then that's all we got to do on that one because they just wanted the height. Okay, so I'm just going to move that over real quick. Okay, so still Pythagorean theorem, but we only needed part of the figure. Okay, look at number 6. Okay, on number 6, what kind of shape is that? Y'all remember that shape? Starts with a T. Trapezoid has one set of parallel sides, right? Okay, so on this trapezoid, they want us to find x. They want us to find the height. Okay, but what if I take this height and I move it right here?
Then we have ourselves a triangle.
Okay, then you end up with the right triangle, and what other shape? Okay, we got the triangle, and then what's the other shape? Rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to worry about that triangle here in a sec. On that rectangle, I know that this is 5. What's that top piece going to be? 5. Okay, and then we said the height was x over here. So over here, the height is also still going to be x, right? Okay, at the top, they tell you that the entire length, okay, going all the way across, is 18. If part of that is 5, how far is it from here to here? 13. Okay, so we're going to use that piece as part of the right triangle. Okay, I'm going to kind of hide this part of the trapezoid because I really just want to focus on this little triangle right here. Okay, because if we got a right triangle, we can use Pythagorean theorem and figure out what we need to figure out. Okay, so x is one of the legs, 13 is a leg, and then we have the hypotenuse. Are we going to add or subtract when we put this in a calculator? Subtract. Anytime you have the hypotenuse, you're going to subtract. Okay, so we got x is equal to square root of what? Okay, tell me what we're going to type in the calculator.
16 squared minus 13 squared.
Okay, 16 squared minus 13 squared. Okay, and what do we get? 9.3. Okay. That's all you got to do. Are we okay with Pythagorean theorem? Possibly. Okay, so remember for Pythagorean theorem, 1, you need a right triangle. Okay? If you have a right triangle, they're going to either give you both of the legs. And if they give you both of the legs, you're going to square it, add it, and then take the square root. Okay? The other choice is that they give you one of the legs and they give you the hypotenuse. Okay? If you have the hypotenuse, you're going to subtract. Okay? The big number, the hypotenuse, goes out front. You're going to square them, subtract, and take the square root in your calculator. Okay? If you already have your calculator set to round, then you won't have to worry about anything. Once you press enter, you'll get the number you need. You write it down, and then when you get on Canvas, you can just go type your number in. Okay, that is how Pythagorean theorem works. On the back, let's talk about the converse. Okay, so flip over. The converse is kind of like putting a spin on the Pythagorean theorem. Yes, you can figure out missing sides of a triangle, but if they give you some numbers and say, hey, what kind of triangle is this? You can use Pythagorean theorem. You can use this converse to figure out what kind of triangle it is. Okay, so the way that I write the formulas on here are very particular. I put c squared first because it'll keep down confusion when you're trying to classify whether it's acute, obtuse, or right. Okay, so the Pythagorean theorem, like we normally see it, okay, written as a converse, looks like this. You're going to have c squared equals a squared plus b squared. Okay, all we're going to do is just put c squared first. Okay, if when you do that, if c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, you're going to get a right triangle. Okay, so they're going to give you some numbers and they're going to say, hey, first of all, does this make a triangle? If it does make a triangle, what kind of triangle is it? Okay, so if you plug in your numbers and you find out that c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared, it's going to be a right triangle. Okay, if c squared is less than a squared plus b squared, you get an acute triangle. Okay, think about it. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. If your number is less than the other side, it's going to be acute.
So if it's more than, it would be obtuse.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then the third option is you got c squared and it ends up being greater than a squared plus b squared. And that in that case, your triangle will be obtuse. Okay, so your triangles can either be right, acute, or obtuse if it's a triangle. Okay, sometimes they give you the numbers and it doesn't make a triangle. Okay, so if you remember back in part A, they were giving you numbers and you had to tell whether or not it made a triangle. I think it was like unit 4. Okay, they're going to give us 3 numbers in the examples below. And we have to figure out, first of all, does it make a triangle? Okay, so to do that, you're going to take the 2 smaller numbers. You're going to add them up. And they have to be bigger than the third number. Okay, so you add them up. If they're bigger than the third number, then you can say, okay, yes, this is a triangle. And then you can go use the converse to figure out whether it's acute, right, or obtuse. If it doesn't make a triangle, you'll say not a triangle, and then you move on to the next problem. Okay, so take a look at number 1. Okay, they give you 3 numbers. They give you 3, 7, and 9. Okay, so what are the 2 smaller sides? 3 and 7. Okay, so is 3 plus 7 bigger than 9? Yes, we got 10 bigger than 9. So yes, this is a triangle. Okay, because it's a triangle, this is what we're going to do. We're going to take c squared. C is always the larger number. Okay, don't just automatically think it's going to be the last number because they could give it to you out of order. Okay, they can put the numbers in whatever order they want. Make sure you're actually looking at the numbers to tell whether it's the largest one. Okay, so we're going to put c squared first. So there's 9 squared. And I'm going to kind of draw me a little box where I'm going to fill in whether it's less than, greater than, or equal to later on. Okay, so 9 squared, and then on the other side, we're going to do 3 squared plus 7 squared. Okay, so you can use your calculator to help you. You're going to do 9 squared, press enter, see what you get. 3 squared plus 7 squared, press enter, see what you get. Okay, so 9 squared, that gives us what? 9 times 9? 81. Okay, and then 3 squared plus 7 squared. That's what, 9 plus 49, that's 58. Okay, how does 81 relate to 58? Okay, it's greater than, right? Okay, if c squared is greater than a squared plus b squared, that makes it what type of triangle? Obtuse.
Why? Wait, why? Why is that obtuse?
Why is it obtuse? Because c squared is bigger than a squared plus b squared. So if you need to, you can do, like, you can label it. You can say, okay, this is a, this is b, and this is c. Okay. C is this number here, c squared. Here's a squared, and then here's b squared. Okay, if that bigger number, squared, turns out larger than a squared plus b squared, it makes it obtuse. Okay. And then that's all you have to do for that part. Okay, so first thing you have to do on all of them, you have to check to make sure it's a triangle first, and then you can move on to the next part to see what kind of triangle it is. Okay, so take a look at number 2. Okay, we got 20, 21, and 29. What are my two smallest sides? 20 and 21. Okay, so I got to check and make sure it's a triangle. Okay, 20 plus 21, is that bigger than 29? Yes. Okay, so you got 41 bigger than 29. So, okay, we know that it makes a triangle. Now we got to see what type of triangle. Okay, so c squared always goes first. Okay, so 29 squared, we're going to do that first. And then on the other side, we're going to do 20 squared plus 21 squared. Okay, so this is all calculator work. Okay, 29 squared gives us what? 841? Okay, what do we get on the other side? Same thing, 841. So that means these two pieces are what? Equal. And what kind of triangle do we have? A right triangle. Good. Okay, so it's going to work the same each time. You take the two smaller sides, you add them together. They have to be larger than the third side. Okay? If they're larger than the third side, cool. You take c squared, that's going to be the largest number. You square it, see what you get. You take the other two numbers, you square them, add them, see what you get. If they're the same, it's right. If c squared is larger, it's obtuse. If c squared is smaller, then it's acute. Okay, so we're going to keep doing the same thing. Let's take a look at number 3. Okay, we got 4, 11, and 16. What are my two smaller sides? 4 and 11. Okay, 4 and 11. We got to add them together and make sure that they're bigger than 16.
It's not a triangle because when you add them up, it's 15 and 16.
Okay, so Ethan said it's not a triangle because when you add them up, you got 4 plus 11, that's 15. And 15 is not bigger than 16. Okay, so if you run into that, you just stop where you are because it's not a triangle. There's nothing else you can do. Okay, because the converse only works if it's a triangle. Any questions so far? Okay, let's do number 4. Okay, take some time. I want you to do number 4. You got 17, 17, and 22. Okay, so figure out if it's a triangle first. If it is, figure out what type of triangle.
Yeah. So it will be less than that. So it's less than. So if it's less than, what is it?
Okay, so is 17 plus 17 bigger than 22? Yeah, so it's a triangle. Okay, now we're going to do converse. We're going to do 22 squared, and we're going to compare it with 17 squared plus 17 squared. Okay, 22 squared gave us what? 484. Okay. What did we get on the other side? 578. Okay, so how does c squared compare with the other side? It's less than. Less than means that it's what? A cube. Good. Are we okay? All right, so I want to give you the rest of the class period to work on your assignment. We got about 40 minutes left. It is all just like this. Okay, it's 10 questions. I passed out some scratch paper if you need it. If I didn't give you one, I'll give you one here in a sec. Ask questions. If you want to check your work, raise your hand or come see me. We can check your work. But you should be able to get through this without any trouble. Okay?